American car dealers just helped clear 30,000 of one specific model off their lots. Not by selling them to buyers, but by slashing prices so deep that some units moved at a loss. The car's manufacturer called it shifts in the policy environment. What it actually was: the end of a nameplate after only 3 years. And millions of Americans who bought one of the vehicles on this list in the last 3 years are now sitting on losses they were never warned about. We are not talking about small numbers. We are talking about $20,000, $35,000, in one case more than $62,000 in value, gone from vehicles that were marketed as smart, forward-thinking buys. Dealers already know these numbers. That is why right now, in 2025 and into 2026, some of them are refusing trade-ins on specific models or offering figures that don't come close to covering what owners still owe. If you own one of these vehicles or you are shopping the used market right now, this is information you need before you make your next move. We tracked 6 specific cars and brands, using data from IC Cars, CarEdge, KBB, and Kerrigan Advisors 2026 dealer survey, that are either already dead, actively bleeding value, or structurally positioned to hurt every owner who stays too long. We are going hardest first. Before the list, you need to understand why this is happening to these specific vehicles and not others. 3 things have shifted in the American market simultaneously, and together they are separating the cars that hold value from the ones that collapse. First, Stellantis, the parent company of Jeep, Dodge, Chrysler, Ram, and Alfa Romeo, reported a net loss of $26.3 billion for 2025. That is not a bad quarter. That is a structural crisis at one of the largest automakers in the world. When a parent company loses $26 billion, every brand underneath it carries that uncertainty in its resale price. Second, the used market is now flooded. Stellantis alone had over 1.3 million vehicles sitting in unsold inventory as of late 2024. When a manufacturer with that much excess supply starts cutting prices at the new car level to move units, used values for the same models fall in lockstep. Third, Toyota, Honda, and Hyundai Kia are pulling further ahead. Toyota set sales records in 2025. Ford's trucks held. Meanwhile, every brand on this list is measured against vehicles that the market trusts implicitly. And the gap is getting wider, not smaller. Car 1. The Dodge Hornet. In January 2026, Dodge officially killed the Hornet. 3 model years, done. The brand spokesperson said production ended due to shifts in the policy environment. What they meant was tariffs on the Italian-built crossover made the business math impossible. The Hornet shared its platform and factory with the Alfa Romeo Tonale, both assembled in Italy. But here is the number that explains everything before the tariffs. As of December 2025, 82.1% of 2024 Dodge Hornet PHEV inventory was still sitting unsold on dealer lots. The industry average for leftover same-year models is 0.4%. The Hornet was at 82.1%. At its worst in mid-2024, the Hornet had 550 days of inventory supply. The industry average is 40 days. Dealers had a year and a half of unsold Hornets, taking up space and generating floor plan costs. In Q4 of 2025 alone, only 879 Hornets sold across the entire country, an 82% quarterly collapse. Dodge dealers are now offering $4,000 to $8,000 off the sticker on remaining units just to clear them. For anyone who paid full price for a 2023 or 2024 Hornet, that dealer discount comes directly out of their trade-in offer. The Hornet loses 43.5% of its value in 5 years. The Toyota RAV4 loses around 18%. That is not a rounding error. That is $8,000 to $12,000 in the difference. Dodge has committed to honoring warranties and parts, but a discontinued model from a brand whose parent company just lost $26 billion is not a vehicle the used market prices with confidence. Car 2. The Jeep Grand Cherokee. The Grand Cherokee is not going anywhere. It is one of Jeep's most important nameplates. But the data on what it does to the finances of the people who own it is not something Jeep's advertising budget will ever show you. According to iSeeCar's data analyzing over 15 million vehicles, the Grand Cherokee depreciates 50% after 5 years. On a base price of roughly $48,000, that means the average Grand Cherokee owner loses $24,000 in 5 years. And CarEdge's 2025 data shows the 5-year resale value sitting at just 32.3%, meaning roughly $32,000 gone on a mid-trim purchase. To understand what this costs in practical terms, a 2022 Grand Cherokee with a clean record and 42,000 miles has already lost 30% of its original value. The dealer offering you a trade-in on that vehicle knows those numbers. The offer you receive reflects them. There is also the inventory reality. According to iSeeCar's data from December 2025, the Jeep Grand Cherokee had the third highest leftover 2024 inventory of any vehicle in America at 70.8%. And the Jeep 4xe PHEV variant specifically was one of the models Stellantis had to help dealers clear as part of their lot cleanup effort heading into 2026. The Grand Cherokee's peer benchmark is the Ford Explorer, which holds similar resale territory, and neither holds well against the Toyota 4Runner, which retains 65 to 70% of its value at 5 years. That gap represents the true cost of the badge. Car 3. Chrysler. In 2025, Chrysler sold 574 units of the Chrysler 300. The sedan that once anchored the brand, a genuine American presence for 2 decades, moved 574 units in an entire year before going away. What that leaves is a brand that is now, functionally, a minivan company. The Chrysler Pacifica is the only vehicle currently sold under the Chrysler name in the United States. And while minivan sales held up in Q4 2025, the broader context is alarming. Chrysler sales have declined roughly 80% over 2 decades. The brand that was worth fighting to keep alive in multiple corporate mergers is now a single product operation inside a company that just reported the largest annual loss in its history. According to CarEdge's depreciation rankings, Chrysler sits near the bottom for all 3, 5, and 7-year periods. The Chrysler 300 specifically retains only 26% of its value after 5 years. A buyer who paid $45,000 for a 2023 100 in good condition is now looking at a car worth roughly $11,700. The question for Chrysler isn't whether the Pacifica is a good vehicle. It is. The question is what happens to parts availability, dealer network density, and service support for any Chrysler vehicle if the brand's commercial situation continues deteriorating. That is not a hypothetical for Chrysler 300 owners. It is their current reality. This channel publishes new analysis every week on exactly this kind of data. Which American cars are losing value, which dealers are pulling back on trade-ins, and which manufacturers are quietly shrinking their footprint before anyone notices. Subscribe now. Every video we publish could save you thousands of dollars. Car 5. The Lincoln Navigator L, where luxury destroys wealth. The Lincoln Navigator L starts at just over $100,000. It is genuinely impressive, enormous, comfortable, loaded with technology, and built on a solid platform shared with the Ford Expedition. It also destroys more dollar value in 5 years than almost any vehicle in the American market. According to IC Cars data from an analysis of over 800,000 5-year-old vehicles, the Lincoln Navigator L loses 60.3% of its original value, or an average of $62,069 in 5 years. That is more than the total purchase price of most vehicles sold in this country. The overall market average for 5-year depreciation is 45.6%, or roughly $17,000 in dollar terms. The Navigator L loses $62,000. For context, Lincoln ranks 24th out of 32 car brands for reliability according to RepairPal. The market knows this. When a used Navigator L comes up for sale, buyers price in the service complexity, the dealer network gaps. RepairPal's own data shows Lincoln near the bottom of brand reliability rankings. And the fact that a $100,000 vehicle with this depreciation curve has already been punished by every previous owner trying to exit. A Cadillac Escalade depreciates at a similar rate. A Mercedes GLS loses roughly 45% in 5 years. Neither is a value hold, but the Navigator L's depreciation is a class by itself at the dollar level. The gap between what owners paid and what they can recover is, for many, in the neighborhood of a new car. Car 6. The Ford Expedition. Max, the size penalty. The Expedition Max is a genuinely capable vehicle. 3 rows, real towing capacity, well built by American truck standards. None of that protects it from one of the worst depreciation curves in the full-size SUV segment. According to IC Cars' March 2025 analysis, the Ford Expedition Max loses 60% of its value in 5 years, shedding an average of $36,692. On a vehicle that starts at roughly $70,000 in current trim, that means the average owner loses more than half their investment in the time it takes to pay off a standard auto loan. The forces here are structural, not accidental. Full-size body-on-frame SUVs in this price range are being squeezed from both ends. Fuel costs push buyers toward more efficient options, and the price gap between a well-equipped mid-size SUV and the entry level of a full-size has narrowed enough that fewer buyers need to go this large. The pool of buyers competing for used full-size examples is shrinking, and that compression shows up directly in what dealers offer at trade-in. Every vehicle on this list is measured against the same reference point, the Toyota RAV4 Hybrid. According to CarEdge and KBB data, the RAV4 Hybrid retains approximately 63% of its value at 5 years, roughly double the retention of the Dodge Hornet, and $40,000 better than the Lincoln Navigator L over the same period. Toyota's total U.S. sales were essentially flat in 2025, while Stellantis fell 4% and Nissan flatlined despite massive incentives. The brands that protect your investment are the brands American buyers trust most when things go wrong and cost the least when everything goes right. That list has not changed much in 20 years. The brands on it have. Pull a KBB or CarEdge valuation on your specific car today. Write down the number and the date. Check it again in 6 months. If the gap between those two numbers is wider than the normal depreciation rate for your vehicle's category, the market is telling you something specific. It is not pricing age. It is pricing the uncertainty around your brand's future. The Kerrigan Advisors 2026 Dealer Sentiment Survey found that more than 50% of dealers expected Chrysler, Dodge, Jeep, Ram stores to decline in value over the next 12 months. That same survey found Nissan and Infiniti among the most bearish franchises in the country. Dealers are not optimistic about these brands. Their trade-in offers reflect that. The question is whether you find out before or after you make the decision. Subscribe now. Every week we publish what is actually moving in the American car market. Before most owners find out, it already moved past them.